The thunder cracked like a gunshot outside my window, shaking the rain-slicked panes of my Seattle apartment. But it was the insistent pounding on the door that ripped me from my stupor. "Help, please, God. Someone." The voice cracked, raw and desperate, slicing through the storm's roar like a knife through flesh. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs, because in 12 years of living alone in this crumbling building, no one had ever knocked on my door at midnight, let alone begged like their soul was unraveling. I was Elijah Harper, 32 and fraying at the edges, the kind of guy who blended into the gray drizzle of the Pacific Northwest like he'd been born from it. My evenings blurred into one another. Nights spent hunched over my laptop in a freelance graphic design gig that paid just enough to keep the lights on, scrolling through Grindr profiles I'd never message, nursing a whiskey neat that burned less than the ache of another birthday alone. Seattle suited me that way, all fog and forgotten dreams, a city that whispered "you're enough," while screaming "you're invisible." Tonight was no different. I'd fired up an old playlist, Bon Iver crooning about skin and ghosts, poured my third drink, and let the rain drum a lullaby against the world. Until that knock. I padded across the creaky hardwood in socks and a threadbare hoodie, the bottle dangling from my fingers like a lifeline. Peering through the peephole, all I could make out was a blur of drenched black hair plastered to a pale forehead, broad shoulders heaving under a leather jacket that clung like a second skin. No face, just urgency. My hand hovered over the knob, pulse thundering louder than the storm. What if it was a junkie, a cop, hell? In this neighborhood, it could be anything from a lost tourist to the Grim Reaper himself. But something in that voice, hoarse, broken, laced with a southern drawl that cut through the rain like honey over gravel, tugged at me. I twisted the lock. The door swung open, and there he was, a stranger collapsing against the frame, water sheeting off him in rivers, one hand clutching his side where blood seeped through his shirt, staining the white fabric crimson. His eyes, storm gray and wild, locked onto mine, and in that split second, I saw it all: terror, defiance, a flicker of something raw and human that mirrored the void I'd been staring into all night. Don't call the cops," he gasped, sliding down the wall into my entryway, leaving a trail of mud and rain. "Name's Nathaniel. Please. I just need a minute." I slammed the door against the wind, dropping to my knees beside him, the whiskey bottle clattering forgotten to the floor. Close. He was a mess of contradictions, chiseled jaw shadowed with stubble, lips cracked and blue from the cold. But those eyes, Jesus, those eyes held stories that could drown a man. Mid-30s, maybe, built like he'd spent summers hauling hay bales back in whatever Bible Belt town had spit him out. The wound on his side wasn't deep, a gash, probably from a bar fight or worse, but it wept steadily, mixing with the rain. "What the hell happened?" I muttered, grabbing a dish towel from the kitchen counter and pressing it to his ribs. He winced, his hand shooting up to grip my wrist, fingers iron-strong despite the tremor. Ex-boyfriend, he rasped, the word hanging heavy between us like smoke. "Caught me leavin'. Things got ugly." His gaze flicked to mine, searching, vulnerable in a way that punched the air from my lungs. In Seattle, we'd all danced around our scars. Mine from a high school coming out that ended with my parents' silence and a one-way bus ticket north. But this guy, he wore his like badges, unashamed even as blood pooled on my floor. I should have called 911, should have kicked him out into the storm. Instead, I helped him to the couch, fetched my crappy first aid kit, and listened as the rain battered the windows like an impatient lover. His name was Nathaniel Crow, from a dust-choked town outside Nashville, Tennessee, where football fields were cathedrals and loving the wrong way got you a one-way ticket to hellfire sermons. He'd fled 2 years back after his family's garage business tanked, chasing dreams of something bigger in the city lights. Landed in Portland first, then drifted north when the winters there started feeling too much like the cold shoulders back home. Thought Seattle would be different, he said, voice steadying as I dabbed antiseptic on his wound. Rains wash everything clean, right? But it's just layers on layers of shit you can't scrub off. His laugh was bitter, self-deprecating, the kind that invited you to join in or punch him for it. I nodded, too aware of my own layers. My story was smaller, quieter, orphaned young, bounced through foster homes that taught me love was a loan you paid back in bruises. Came out at 16 to a social worker who shrugged and said, "Kid, priorities." Built a life here on pixels and pretense. Dating men who vanished like fog at dawn. Too afraid of my steadiness. Or maybe just bored by it. Nathaniel's arrival cracked that facade wide open. As I taped gauze over his ribs, our knees brushed, and electricity hummed. Not from the storm but from the heat of his skin against mine. "Why me?" I asked, tying off the bandage. "You could have knocked on any door." He leaned back, wincing, those gray eyes tracing my face like he was memorizing it. "Saw the light. Figured anyone burnin' the midnight oil alone on a night like this might understand." It was the first real smile I'd seen all week. Crooked, tentative, blooming like a bruise. We talked then, words spilling like the rain outside. His ex, a possessive architect named Derek who'd promised forever but delivered fists when the whiskey flowed. My last hookup, a barista who ghosted after I dared ask for a second date. The clock ticked past 1, then 2, the storm easing to a patter, but neither of us moved. He crashed on my couch that night, wrapped in a blanket that smelled of my laundry detergent, and for the first time in years, the apartment didn't feel like a tomb. Morning came gray and grudging, sunlight filtering through clouds like an apology. Nathaniel stirred as I brewed coffee, strong, black, the way Southerners liked it, I guessed from some half-remembered movie. He looked wrecked in daylight, dark circles under his eyes, the gash a angry red line peeking from his shirt. But there was a quiet strength to him, like oak weathered by tempests. "Oh, you my life, Elijah," he said, accepting the mug with hands that dwarfed the ceramic. His voice had lost its edge, softened to a drawl that wrapped around my name like smoke. We ate toast in silence at first, the kind that wasn't awkward but charged, every glance a question neither dared voice. By noon, he'd insisted on repaying me, chopping vegetables for a stew I'd thawed from the freezer, his knife work precise from years fixing engines. We laughed over stupid shit, my hatred for the Seahawks, his obsession with Johnny Cash records. Man sang about walkin' the line, 'cause he knew which side the devil waited on, Nathaniel said, stirring the pot with a focus that made my chest tighten. He was easy to be around, filling the space I'd kept empty on purpose. No games, no pretense, just two men orbiting the pull of what-ifs under a roof that suddenly felt too small. That afternoon, the rain returned, softer now, lulling us into confessions. He told me about his brother, lost to opioids in a town that blamed the queers before the pills. I shared the foster dad who'd straightened me out with a belt until I ran. Our hands found each other across the table, tentative at first, then sure, calluses against calluses, a bridge over chasms. When he kissed me, it was like the storm breaking, fierce, unyielding, tasting of coffee and salt. We tumbled to the bedroom in a tangle of limbs and whispers, the world narrowing to the press of his body against mine, the way he gasped my name like a prayer. It wasn't just sex. It was reclamation, two souls clawing back pieces the world had stolen. But nothing that raw comes without shadows. 2 weeks blurred into a fever dream. Nathaniel crashed at my place, his duffel by the door like a promise he wouldn't bolt. We wandered Pike Place under umbrellas, stealing kisses amid fishmongers' shouts. Cooked gumbo from a recipe he swore was authentic, laughing when it scorched the pot. Nights were ours, bodies entwined, his head on my chest as he traced the tattoos I'd inked to cover scars. "You're my harbor, Eli," he'd murmur, voice thick with sleep, and I'd believe it, because in his arms, the loneliness dissolved like mist, yet cracks spiderwebbed in. Calls he took in the bathroom, voice low and urgent. "Yeah, Derek," I said, "I'm done. Stop tracking me." Texts lighting his phone at odd hours, face hardening like flint. I ignored them, chalked it up to ghosts. Until the night he vanished, duffel gone, a scribbled note on the fridge, had to handle something. Back soon. Love and love. The word hollowed me, echoing in the empty apartment as rain lashed the windows again. Days stretched to a week. I scoured bars, messaged grinder ghosts for leads, nothing. Panic gnawed. Had Derek found him? Was he bleeding out in some alley? Then, the email. No subject, from an address I didn't know. Attached, a photo us, tangled in sheets, my face blissed out in sleep. Below, "He's mine. Stay away or this goes viral." Betrayal hit like a freight train. Not just the photo stolen, intimate, but the lie Nathaniel had carried. He'd known, from that first knock, what shadows trailed him, yet he'd pulled me in, made me believe in anchors. I drove to Portland on fumes and fury, the address from a reverse search on Derek's name leading to a sleek loft in the Pearl District. The door opened to a smug bastard, tall, polished, with eyes like chipped ice. Elijah, right? Nath's little Seattle fling. "Where is he?" I growled, fists clenched. Derek smirked, stepping aside. There, on a leather couch, was Nathaniel, bruised jaw, split lip, but alive. Our eyes met, his widening in horror. "Eli, how? You told him?" Derek sneered, waving his phone. "About the video? The one where he begs me not to leave." Nathaniel surged up, shoving Derek back. "Shut your mouth. That was before." The pieces shattered into place. Not just an ex, but a web of manipulation, promises broken and remade in the dark. Derek had funded Nathaniel's escape from Tennessee, only to wield it like a chain, money for silence, love laced with control. The knock on my door? No accident. Nathaniel had spotted my building weeks earlier, during a business trip to Seattle, scouting safe harbors when Derek's rages peaked. I'd been a plan B, a soft landing in his escape fantasy. Fury boiled over. I lunged, but Nathaniel caught me, his grip a vice. "Eli, listen, I never meant to use me?" I wrenched free, voice cracking. "To drag me into your mess?" Derek laughed, low and cruel. He's good at that. Hooks you with those puppy eyes, then runs when the leash tightens. Sirens wailed distant. Someone must have called. Chaos erupted. Nathaniel tackling Derek. Fists flying in a blur of grunts and curses. Me, frozen, then scrambling for my phone to dial 911. Cops burst in, separating them, cuffing Derek on assault charges while Nathaniel babbled explanations, restraining orders, therapy sessions he'd skipped, the cycle of abuse he'd hidden behind bravado. In the aftermath, handcuffs glinting under fluorescent lights, Nathaniel turned to me, blood trickling from his brow. I knocked because I saw you, Eli. Not the building, the light in the window. You were real. This is me trying to be real too. I walked out into the rain, heart a storm of its own. Betrayal stung, but beneath it, the truth. We'd both been running from families, from selves we'd half buried. He wasn't a stranger anymore. He was a mirror, cracked but reflecting light. Months later, Seattle's drizzle felt like baptism. Nathaniel got clean therapy, NA meetings in church basements that echoed his Tennessee roots without the judgment. I forgave in pieces, coffee dates turning to dinners, nights where we talked scars instead of sex. No grand gestures, just the quiet romance of showing up, him fixing my leaky faucet with grease-stained hands, me holding his during panic attacks when Derek's appeals dragged on. One evening, as autumn leaves skittered like confetti, he knelt in my kitchen, not with rings, but with a simple box, his old Johnny Cash vinyl, scratched but whole. "This is the line I want to walk with you," he said, voice steady. "No more runnin'. If you'll have me." Tears blurred the needle drop, but I pulled him up, kissing him fierce under the hum of Ring of Fire. We weren't fixed. Love in America, for men like us, was a rebellion against the grind, humanistic in its mess. Forgiveness earned, not given, joy carved from ruins. That rainy night knock? It didn't alter just my evening. It rebuilt us, brick by imperfect brick, into something enduring. The storm had passed, but we danced in its echo, two souls no longer strangers. We settled into a rhythm after that, the kind that felt less like fate and more like deliberate choice, the American dream repackaged for two guys who'd learned early that dreams could bruise. Nathaniel found work at a mechanic shop in Fremont, elbow deep in Volvos and Subarus. His drawl charming tipsy tech bros into overpaying for oil changes. "Y'all drive these tin cans like they're muscle cars," he'd gripe over dinner. Grease etched into his cuticles like war paint. I tease him about it, sketching caricatures of him as a grease monkey superhero on napkins, while he rolled his eyes and stole bites of my stir-fry. My freelance gigs picked up 2 logos for queer-owned startups. Album art for indie bands crooning about heartbreak in minor keys. Money wasn't flush, but it was ours, joint account for rent, separate jars for whims, like the road trip fund that grew fatter with every skipped latte. Saturdays became sacred hikes up to Discovery Park, where the sound crashed like applause, and we'd sit on driftwood logs, his arm around my shoulders, watching fairies slice the horizon. "Never thought I'd miss trees this much," he'd say, nuzzling my neck. "Tennessee pines got nothing on this emerald shit, but peace, for us, was a vigilant thing." Derek's shadow lingered, court dates that pulled Nathaniel south, leaving me pacing the apartment like a caged wolf. The first hearing was a gut punch. Derek, suited up like a Wall Street shark, spinning tales of mutual volatility. His lawyer painting Nathaniel as the unstable one, The Tennessee transplant with anger issues. I flew down on standby, sat in the back row of that sterile Nashville courtroom, heart in my throat as Nathaniel testified, voice steady but eyes haunted, recounting nights Derek's love left him black and blue. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a no bullshit squint, saw through it, restraining order extended, but the victory tasted like ash. On the flight home, Nathaniel stared out the window, silent until the captain announced descent. "Feels like poking a bear," he muttered. "He don't quit." I squeezed his hand. "Neither do we." That became our mantra, etched into the tattoo he got on his forearm, a compass rose, pointing north to Seattle, with neither inked below. I matched it on my wrist, the needle's bite a vow. Romance bloomed in the mundane. Lazy Sundays binging Queer Eye marathons. Him mocking the fashion consultant while secretly trying on my scarves. Midnight drives to Alki Beach, windows down, blasting Springsteen as if Thunder Road was written for runaways like us. Sex was our liturgy. Slow mornings when sunlight slanted gold across sheets, urgent evenings when trials loomed. He knew my body like a map, tracing freckles with lips that whispered affirmations. Beautiful. Mine. Safe. Yet conflict simmered, not from without but within. Nathaniel's past wasn't just Derek. It was the Bible verses drilled into him, the father who'd prayed over him like exorcism after finding dog-eared pages of Walt Whitman in his room. Nightmares woke him sweating, murmuring apologies to ghosts. "What if I'm broken, Eli?" he'd ask in the dark, voice small. I'd hold him tighter, countering with stories of my own fractures, the foster brother who'd cornered me in the bathroom, the straight conversion camp pamphlet that landed in my mailbox years later. Anonymous and vicious. "We're all busted," I'd say. "But look what we build." The real fracture came unannounced, 6 months in, on a crisp October evening. I'd planned a surprise, dinner at a hole-in-the-wall Italian joint in Capitol Hill, candlelight flickering over plates of carbonara, a bottle of Chianti to toast our half-year mark. He was late, text vague, stuck at shop. Be there. An hour ticked by, then 2 worry-gnawed, visions of car wrecks and bar fights flashing like bad film reels. By 10, I was pacing the rain-slicked sidewalk, phone buzzing with a call from an unknown number. "Elijah? It's Marcus, Nath's buddy from the garage." The voice was hesitant, laced with pity. "Man, you gotta come. There's trouble." The shop was a squat brick building off Aurora, floodlights buzzing like angry hornets. Police cruisers flanked the lot, red and blues pulsing against the night. Nathaniel sat on the curb, wrists cuffed behind him, a uniformed cop murmuring rights while another rifled his toolbox. Marcus hovered, wringing a rag. "Fight with a customer," he explained. Low. Guy accused him of scratching his Beamer. Words got hot. Nath swung first. My stomach dropped. "Derek. Nah. Some yuppie asshole." "But shit, Eli. He mentioned knowing about the Nashville thing. Said Nath was unstable. Cops are taking him in for assault." Rage and fear collided as I pushed through, dropping to my knees before him. His face was a map of regret, lips swollen, eyes downcast. "I'm sorry," he breathed. "Lost it." Like always, the cops hauled him up, but I followed to the station, bailing him out with savings I'd earmarked for that road trip. In the harsh fluorescence of the holding room, truth unraveled. The customer? Derek's cousin, planted to provoke, a petty sabotage from afar. Nathaniel had known the risks, temper like his daddy's, fists quicker than reason, but seeing the bait, he'd bitten. "I can't keep dragging you down," he said, voice hollow as they processed release. "You deserve clean. Don't," I snapped, signing forms with shaking hands. "We're in this, remember, neither quits," but doubt seeded. Days blurred, court-mandated anger management for him, me fielding calls from his PO, our rhythm stuttering like a skipped record. Romance frayed, kisses obligatory, nights side by side but worlds apart. He threw himself into work, coming home reeking of oil and silence. I buried in designs, pixels blurring with unshed tears. The apartment, once sanctuary, echoed with unspoken accusations. "Why can't you control it? Why do I always clean up?" Climax brewed on Thanksgiving, that most American of minefields, turkey and gratitude masking family feuds. We'd planned small, just us, a bird from the co-op, pie from the bakery down the block. But Nathaniel's phone rang mid-carve, his mother's voice crackling through, tearful, slurred, begging him home for the holiday. "Your brother's girl is expectant. Family needs you, Nate. We forgive everything." He hung up, fork trembling. "She don't know about us. Thinks I'm finned in myself up here." The words ignited. "And? You gonna go play straight son for pie and prayers?" His eyes flashed. "It's not that simple. They buried Dad last spring. Heart attack from the stress, they say. Stress from me leaving. From the disgrace." Disgrace. I hurled the word back. Hot. "That's their poison. Not yours. Or ours." We shattered then, plates flying, voices rising until neighbors banged walls. He stormed out into the sleet, duffel in hand, echoing that first note. I collapsed amid shards, sobbing into the rug, the bird congealing cold. Betrayal, again not from him leaving, but from the truth it unearthed. Our love, humanistic as it aimed to be, couldn't erase roots that deep. I loved him, but was it enough to graft new branches? Dawn brought him back, soaked and shivering on the stoop, not with apologies but actions. Broom in hand, sweeping glass with dawn's first light. "I called her back," he said, voice raw. "Told her about you. About us." She cried, hung up. But I said it. We cleaned in silence. Then talked, really talked, over lukewarm coffee and confessions. His fear of becoming his father, fists over feelings, my terror of abandonment, every knock a ghost. No easy fixes, but a pact, couples counseling, boundaries drawn like battle lines. Romance reignited, tentative, a kiss tasting of regret and resolve, bodies reconnecting not in frenzy but forgiveness. Winter deepened, snow dusting the sound like powdered sugar on wounds. Derek's final appeal failed. He vanished to LA, chasing starlets and sobriety scandals. Nathaniel's ink deepened too, visiting Nashville not as son, but man, introducing me over video to a mother who whispered, "He looks happy." That's grace. Our road trip happened in spring. Highway 101 winding like a lover's spine, redwoods towering ancient and unbothered. We camped under stars that mocked our small dramas, made love in a tent to the hoot of owls, woke to coffee brewed on a Coleman stove. "This is it," he said one night, fire crackling, my head on his lap. "The line we're walking, humanism, in our story, Wasn't grand gestures but the grit of showing up. Betrayals mended. Conflicts forged into stronger alloy. That stranger's knock? It hadn't just altered an evening. It birthed a life, messy and true, where two men found harbor not in perfection, but each other. Summer hit Seattle like a reluctant guest, sun breaking through clouds and fits, turning the city into a steam bath of festivals and fleeting tans. We dove in headfirst, shedding winter's weight like old skins. Pride Month kicked it off. Rainbow flags snapping from balconies, the parade a riot of glitter and chants that thrummed in our veins. Nathaniel, usually allergic to crowds, held my hand through the throng on 4th Avenue, his thumb tracing my pulse like a talisman. "Feels like comin' home," he admitted, as drag queens on stilts towered over us, lips synced to Gaga. We danced in the street, sweat slick and laughing, his body pressed to mine amid the bass drop, a public claim that silenced old ghosts. Work steadied. My portfolio landed a contract with a queer film collective, storyboarding shorts about love's quiet revolutions. Nathaniel's shop promoted him to foreman. His crew a motley band of ex-cons and artists who ribbed him about his city boy drawl. Evenings, we'd unwind on the balcony, overlooking the shipping cranes like skeletal sentinels, sharing a joint and plotting futures. "Buy a houseboat?" he'd muse, exhaling smoke rings. "Float away when it gets too real," I'd counter with land, a cabin near Olympic, where rain fed ferns and we could grow old yelling at crows. But drama, that old friend, circled back insidious. A letter arrived mid-July, postmarked Nashville. His mother's handwriting, shaky on the envelope. Inside, a check $5,000 for the wedding, with a note, "Heard from your aunt. Congrats, come home, boys." Doors open, confusion hit first, then ice. Wedding? We joked about it over beers, rings glinting in hypotheticals, but nothing concrete. Nathaniel stared at the paper, color draining. Aunt Rita must have seen pride pics on Facebook. The assumption cracked something fragile. "They think it's a phase? Money to lure you back." He crumpled it, but doubt lingered. Family pulled like gravity, especially when his brother announced a shotgun wedding, straight as an arrow, baby on the way. Invites followed, all welcome. No drama. Nathaniel wrestled it alone at first, nights tossing while I feigned sleep. When he broke, it was volcanic. What if they're right? What if this us is just rebellion? Not forever. Words I'd buried surfaced, sharp. Or maybe you're scared of choosing joy over their approval. The fight spilled into August heat, accusations flying like bottle rockets. He accused me of naivety, untouched by blood ties. I hurled his denial back, the boy who'd fled rather than fight. Doors slammed, silences stretched, he slept on the couch, I in a bed too vast. Betrayal twisted anew. Not from family, but our failure to armor each other against it. I walked Capitol Hill alone, nursing IPAs in dive bars where twinks flirted oblivious, temptation a siren's whisper. But home called, his truck parked crooked, light spilling from the window. Inside, he waited with takeout barbecue ribs, Memphis style, a peace offering from his roots. "I called the brother," he said, sauce staining his fingers. "Told him I'm bringin' my partner. Elijah Harper, graphic wizard, pain in my ass, tears mixed with sauce as we ate, raw confessions over coleslaw. His fear of repeating Dad's stoic silence, my dread of loving too hard only to lose. We made love that night slow, reverent, apologies etched in touches, climax a release of held breaths. Fall brought harvest, literal and not. We road-tripped to the apple orchards in Yakima, picking bins under azure skies, cider-fermented kisses sticky sweet. Back home, counseling deepened, sessions in a cozy office overlooking the locks, where salmon leaped like determined lovers. Our therapist, a no-nonsense dyke named Carla, called our dynamic beautifully volatile, fire that forged or flared. Homework, weekly vulnerability dates, no holds barred. Nathaniel shared letters from his youth. Pleas to God for normalcy. I unearthed foster files, redacted but revealing, proof of a system that discarded rather than cherished. Romance romanticized the ordinary. Him surprising me with tickets to a cash tribute at the Triple Door, where fiddles wailed and we slow danced in dim light, bodies sinking like they'd never parted. I designed our first couple tat, interlocked gears, symbolizing the machine we'd built from rust. Inked side by side, needles humming, pain a shared sacrament. Yet climax loomed, unbidden, in November's chill, the current date mirroring our first storm. Derek resurfaced, not with fists but finesse, a LinkedIn message to me, innocuous at first. Heard you're thriving. Nath mentioned your work. Impressive. Coffee? Old friends catching up. Curiosity bit. I met him at a neutral cafe in Belltown, waves crashing below like warnings. Polished as ever, Derek sipped espresso, eyes appraising. I owe you an apology, he started. Smooth. For the photo, the games. Therapy's a bitch. Made me see my part. Skepticism warred with empathy. His remorse rang true, laced with tales of his own abusive dad. Cycles unbroken until now. Nath deserved better. You both do. He slid a card, his new gig, counselor for queer youth. Irony bit, but so did hope, redemption, American style, bootstraps and breakthroughs. I told Nathaniel that night, over stew simmering with secrets. His reaction, a storm of its own, face paling, then flushing fury. You met him? Alone? After everything? Thought it closure, I defended. For us, he laughed, bitter. Were you playing savior while I wait to blow up again? Accusations escalated. My trust issues masked as compassion. His paranoia poisoning progress. The fight peaked with him bolting again, this time to Marcus's couch. Duffel light. Days blurred in agony. Me drafting emails unsent. Him posting cryptic X-threads about chains disguised as care. Betrayal peaked when I found the unsent draft on his phone. A goodbye letter. Half-written. Eli, you're the best thing, but I can't risk breaking you more. Heart in shards. I drove to the shop at dawn. Rain sheeting like tears. He was under a hood, wrench in hand, when I stormed in. Read it. I thrust the printout. Then tell me we're done. He dropped tools, reading in silence, face crumpling. I wrote it at my lowest after the family call. Never sent cause. You're my why. We collapsed against the workbench, sobs mingling with motor oil scent. No more solos, I whispered. We face the devils together. Humanity shone in the mending. Derek's olive branch? Declined, but forwarded to his PO as caution. Nathaniel's family? A tentative visit. Me beside him at the brother's wedding. Not as spectacle, but support. Toasts rang awkward, but his mother's hug, hesitant then tight, whispered volumes. Y'all look right, she said, eyes wet. Winter solstice. We hosted our own rite, tree trimmed with gear ornaments, lights twinkling like stars reclaimed. Nathaniel proposed not with knees but whispers. Ring a simple band engraved, neither. I said yes amid laughter and love, bodies celebrating in firelight. That Knox echo? A reminder. Love's drama isn't plot twists, but perseverance, the romantic humanism of choosing. Daily, amid the rain. Spring unfurled like a promise kept. Cherry blossoms carpeting queen and in pink confetti, mirroring the flush of our engagement. Planning wedded US deeper. No Vegas kitsch, but a backyard affair at a rented cabin near Snoqualmie. Evergreens arching like cathedral vaults, the fall's roaring benediction. Invites went queer and wide, my design collective, his garage crew, even Carla the therapist with her wife. Nathaniel's family? A maybe, his brother RSVP'd yes. Mom a soft considering. Mine? Foster echoes. But friends filled the gaps. Humanism in chosen kin. Work wove wonder. My film boards greenlit a short. Thresholds. About a knock changing everything meta. Our story veiled in pixels. Nathaniel apprenticed welding. Sculptures emerging from scrap. Twisted metal lovers embracing. Sold at Fremont fairs to hipsters cooing edgy. Money flowed freer. We eyed a fixer-upper in Ballard. Victorian bones begging resurrection. Romance rioted. Elopement almost on whim drives to the peninsula. Picnics where he'd feed me strawberries. Juice-staining vows. Sex evolved, exploratory. Toys from a Capitol Hill shop. Laughter lacing moans as we mapped new territories. You're my adventure, he'd growl, eyes dark with want. But conflict, ever the uninvited guest, crashed Memorial Day weekend. A call from Tennessee, Mom, voice quavering. Nate, honey, your Aunt Rita's dyin'. Liver. Wants to see you. And Elijah, the end hung loaded. Forgiveness or farewell guilt? Nathaniel paced. Phone clutched like grenade. She hated this, us. Now, what? Pardon on her deathbed. I advocated grace. Go. For you, not her. He flew solo. 3 days stretching eternal. Updates trickled. Hospital vigils. Siblings circling wagons. Mom's hand in his, whispering, I was wrong. Love him fierce. But subtext simmered. Cousins' side eyes. Bible thumpers murmuring lifestyle. Back. He was hollowed. Aunt blessed us, said we're holy in our way. But Dad's grave. They left rainbow flowers. Show? Or trap? Doubt daggers. Was acceptance authentic? Or pity? We argued orbits, me pushing integration, him guarding our bubble. They'll swallow us whole, he warned. Betrayal brewed when I booked tickets unasked. For a summer visit. Your choice, I said. But hiding starves us. Fury flared. You don't get it. It's not your South. The chasm widened. He crashed at the shop loft. Nights radio silent. I wandered markets alone. Fingering rings we hadn't exchanged. Loneliness a familiar fiend. Climax crested July 4th. Fireworks booming over the sound as I drove to Fremont. Heart pounding. The loft door yielded to my knock. Ironic echo. And there he was. Shirtless. Welding scars fresh. Eli, I shoved the tickets in his chest. Burn M. Or use M. But decide with me. He pulled me in. Kiss desperate. Tasting of solder and sorrow. I called Mom. Told her we're comin'. as fiancés. No hides. Tears salined the relief. We made up on the concrete floor, urgent and unyielding, reclaiming territory. August's visit was trial by humidity. Nashville's sprawl a sauna of magnolias and memories. His family home, rambling rancher with sagging porch, welcomed wary, handshake stiff, but mom's pie was pecan sweet, brother's wife cooing over my sketches. Dinner prayers skipped, sins. Aunt's wake a quiet vigil where Rita's sister clasped our hands. She saw love. Real love. Not seamless. Cousin's drunk jab about recruitin'. Dad's ghost in faded photos, but seeds sprouted. Nathaniel showed me the garage ruins. Weeds claiming bays. We danced in the empty lot to phantom fiddles. Ghosts exorcised in two-step. Fall anchored us. House hunt yielding a craftsman with bay windows and a yard for dog dreams. Wedding loomed. October 15th. Leaves aflame. Prep was chaos romantic. Vows penned in margins. Cake tastings devolving to frosting fights. Nathaniel's suit, tailored denim. Boots polished. Mine, slim wool with a pocket square embroidered, neither. Eve of nerves jangled. We snuck to the falls, water thundering catharsis. Scared? He asked, arms around me. Terrified, I admitted. Of forever meaning mundane. He grinned. That crooked salvation. Mundane with you? That's the dream. Ceremony dawned misty, clearing to gold. 50 souls under a cedar arch. Carla officiating. Words weaving our tapestry. From knocks to knots. You chose. Rings slid, cool silver warming, and vows spilled, mine. You knocked. Opened, now. We build. His drawl thick. You're my storm and shelter. Eli. Forever's just the start. Cheers erupted. Kisses sealed amid petals and pie. Night fell feasting, barbecue and bluegrass. Dances where we led. Unashamed. Mom arrived late. Hugging fierce. My boys glowed. Humanistic pinnacle. Not erasure, but embrace, flaws folded into family. Winter whispered of more. Adoption seminars. Art shows for his welds. That rainy knock? Catalyst for a life layered. Dramatic in depths. Emotional in ebbs. Romantic in returns. Humanistic in healing. Years layered like Seattle's fog, thickening. Then lifting to reveal horizons we dared not dream. Our Ballard craftsman became haven. Walls painted sage. Shelves groaning with records and sketchpads. A golden retriever named Cash bounding through rooms like joy incarnate. Mornings ritualized. Coffee brewing as Nathaniel whistled Dylan. Me at the drafting table. Sunlight slanting across blueprints of lives intertwined. Career crests. My thresholds short-screened at Outfest. Earning nods and a feature gig. Scripting a queer western. Cowboys claiming hearts under big skies. Nathaniel's sculptures scaled. Commissions for parks. Twisted lovers in bronze gazing eternal. We traveled lean. Nashville reunions where mom baked pies with pride flags piped in icing. Portland pride floats we built from scrap. Romance rooted deep. Anniversaries at Alki. Bonfires where we'd renew vows impromptu. Words evolving with wrinkles. Conflict. Softer now. Surfaced in growth pains. Cash's cancer diagnosis hit like thunderclap. Vet bills draining. Nights cradling his graying muzzle as he whimpered. He's our first kid, Nathaniel choked, burying face in fur. We fought fate with chemo runs. Holistic herbs. But decline was inexorable. Last walk to the park. Leash loose. He collapsed under our tree, euthanasia swift. grave dug in backyard earth. Grief geysered, arguments over what-ifs, blame flung like mud. You pushed the puppy phase, he'd accuse. I'd retort. You enabled the denial. Betrayal stung self-inflicted, our armor cracking under loss. Therapy rebooted. Carla's office a buoy. Grief's not enemy, it's editor. We mourned messy, planting daffodils on the mound, adopting a shelter mutt named Whiskey, tentative tails wagging hope. Climax crested unexpectedly. 5 years wed, a call from Derek. Sober a decade, he'd founded a foundation, Aid for Queer Abuse Survivors, Nashville-based. Nath, Eli, your story inspired. Keynote at our gala? Share the knock that changed everything. Hesitation hummed. Platform or Pandora? Nathaniel paced decks slick with November rain, current chill echoing origins. What if it's trap? Or what if it's grace? We weighed wings. Flight south. Suits starched. Audience a sea of faces scarred like ours. Stage lights hot. Nathaniel gripped podium. Drawl steady. That night, soaked and stupid, I knocked on a stranger's door. Thought I was runnin' from hell. Turns out, I was runnin' to heaven. Laughter rippled. I joined. Voice weaving visuals, the storm, the kiss, the cracks mended. Applause thundered, but deeper. Derek's handshake post-talk. Eyes clear. You saved me by surviving. Catharsis washed. No full forgiveness, but release his chain broken. Ours forged freer. Post-gala. Life bloomed by foster certification. A teen named Jamie crashing our couch. Wiry, wary, with eyes like young Nath's. Parenting raw, nights decoding panic attacks. Days teaching torque wrenches and Photoshop. Romance recalibrated. Date nights squeezed amid homework. Sex stolen in laundry folds. Love's language shifting to legacy. A decade from that knock, we stood on our porch, gray threading temples, hands laced loose. Seattle drizzled gentle, Cash's ghost in every puddle. Altered evening? Nathaniel mused, kissing my temple. Altered everything. Humanistic coda. No tidy bows, but truths tenderly told. In America's vast, varied tapestry, where queers once whispered, now we roar. Our story sang of storms weathered, betrayals bridged, emotions endured. Romance, not fairy dust but fire steel. Dramatic in dances with devils, emotional in every embrace, romantic in relentless return, human in the humble heart. We knocked on each other's doors daily, opening always. And in that eternity,